Black Out Loud Media Group. Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody. Hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you all are enjoying this season so far. We've had a lot of special guests, and today is just like any other day. We have another special guest. So introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Terrence. So my name is Brittany Jones, and I am a resident in Most Corners, South Carolina. My professional career is HR manager. However, outside of HR management, I do have a nonprofit called Hands of Giving. I am also a board of director with the Royal Foundation, which is a nonprofit in North Charleston, South Carolina. And I am also an author of one lovely book, which is my baby, called So I Encourage You Today. So a little bit my professional career and what I do outside of that organization. So I do work with a lot of nonprofits, which is how Terrence and I know each other. We've worked with a nonprofit before. So a lot of my work in nonprofit authoring, but most of my career has been in HR.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on. So I encourage you today. I looked through this book and I must say it's well put together. What was the inspiration behind this book?
So first I would say I'm a writer. So when I'm saying I'm a writer, if I have any thoughts, any emotional thoughts, any epiphanies, I like to write them down. If I have a dream, I like to write them down. So I enjoy writing. So it was kind of natural for me to start writing a book. But in regards to what sparked this actual idea of So I Encourage You Today, it was really birthed during the pandemic. And probably like a lot of you or others, you might have known that you learn a lot of things about yourself. You learn a lot of things. Yeah. And I was in that mix right along with everyone else. I learned a lot of different things about myself, things I need to do better in, things I need to give myself more credit for. But really is a women's spiritual book based on Christianity, and so for women's devotional rather. So God was speaking to me a lot during this pandemic. And I learned so much about myself, and I really wanted to put it in a book so I can inspire others. The lessons that I've learned, the things that I wish I have learned earlier, I want to be able to put in a book and be able to give it to other women. And men can read it too, but it is designed for women. But I really got this idea based on the lessons that God was teaching me during the pandemic, and it was really therapeutic for me as I was writing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how it came to fruition.
I notice whenever I talk to other writers, we all say the same thing, like writing becomes therapeutic for us. It's like when we're writing something, we're thinking we're helping somebody else, but most times we're helping ourselves just getting stuff out on paper.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. So actually, I was speaking with someone and I was talking about myself, and they were saying, well, why do you talk about yourself that way? Why do you speak those things about yourself? Talk to yourself the same way that you would talk to other people. And so when you just mentioned it, I kind of thought about that. I kind of realized that about myself this year. But when I was writing the book as well, I'm like, these are things that I want to hear as well, things that I need to remember. So there have been times I even went back and reread the book, so for my benefit, so I can say it's for other people and to inspire others, but it has really helped me too. And remembering what God has shown me, remember what God has told me about certain things, and that motivation, that encouragement that I have given to other people. Sometimes I need to read it myself so I can get that same encouragement.
Yeah, I find myself doing that too. I like to post like inspirational quotes, and sometimes I'll write a poem that's inspiring and then I'll refer back to it. And sometimes it kind of shocks me that I wrote it. It's like, I wrote that? Okay, well, hey. And it's something that I needed in that moment. So I really appreciate you writing this
Yeah.
book, being obedient in writing this book and sharing it with the world pretty much. And I noticed something about it that was interesting to me. It's 21 days. So what was the
Yes.
concept behind that? A lot of people try to make it a whole year or something like that. But what was the concept behind 21 days?
So it's interesting that you said that because that was my original plan. My original plan was to have a devotion every single day of the year. That was the goal. That was the plan. And so I was at maybe day 60 and I'm writing. I'm still writing and I still have material, but I've noticed I'm just really putting words to a paper. That's what I'm
Hmm.
doing. It's not,
Yeah.
it didn't seem meaningful. It stopped being therapeutic. It stopped being enjoyable. It started to feel like work. And so I didn't want it to be work. I wanted this to be inspirational, but I wanted to be a process that I enjoyed as well. And so I just didn't want to put words to a form or to a paper or to paper and just to say I did it, just to say hey, I have a yearly devotional. I didn't want that to be the
Right.
case. Yeah, just to say, just to check it off and say, yep, I accomplished that. I want it to be meaningful, regardless of how long or how short that it was. So I took my favorites. I took my
Okay.
favorites from what really has helped me, and so that's kind of how I had some of the lessons. So making sure they were all different. I say lessons, but devotionals. So talking about accountability, we talking about choosing to be happy, choosing to have joy, and so forth, despite your circumstances. So I really took some of the major things that I've learned over the course of time, and then applied it to the book. So again, kind of going back to what you said before, most people try to do it a year, even a month, but they do say it takes 21 days to make or break a habit, and so that was part of the
Yeah.
reason too why I came with 21. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Now you said something that really stuck out just now about happiness and joy. What did happiness and joy mean to you before writing this book? And did that change after you finished it?
Oh, absolutely. So, and I go back to the thought that I had. I remember I was working at a job in North Charleston, and when I'm telling you that job was stressing me out, I was stressed out. I was crying every day. I just wasn't happy. And
Yeah.
so I remember I was coming up on my vacation. And it was that Friday before my vacation. You know how we get, oh, it's Friday before the vacation. We're
Yeah.
happy. And I remember being out in that parking lot feeling like a burden has lifted from my shoulders. And I felt so light. I felt happy. I was smiling. And I asked, I'm like, I want to feel like this all the time. I don't want to feel like
Yeah.
this just right before a vacation. And I remember God speaking to me, you can. Your joy, the peace that I give you is not based on what's happening around you. It's based on what's inside of you. And
Right.
so I remember God really dealing with me about that. I allowed, whether it was my manager, co-workers, the money I have or didn't have, I remember that being the dictator of my happiness, being the dictator of me having joy and having peace. And I didn't want to give people that power anymore. And I wanted to take that power back. And so that's when I started even more so. I remember God spoke to me about that. I wanted to make sure I put it in the book. So at that point, I realized what joy and happiness meant. And I understood that it was up to me, it wasn't to anybody else. And so, actively, now granted, I can be honest, say there are times I'm not the happiest, I'm not the most
Oh yeah,
joyful,
of
but
course.
I don't look
Yeah.
to others. I don't look to others to give me that feeling or to fill that void. I try to look at it within myself. There's a connection I need to make sure I'm having with God or having with myself. But it's not from money. It's not from external sources.
Yeah, that is so important and so true. I remember working with people and them just talking about how they would feel on the way to work in the morning and how they would think about this stuff over the weekend and how bad. And I'm just like, wow, like I would always encourage them, please find somewhere else to go because it was
Mhm.
heartbreaking to hear some of the stories. Like people really dreaded coming into work and the stress levels, and then you get there and not to mention, you might be dealing with outside stress, things going on at home, wherever you go, your friends, family, even church, there may be some sort of drama. And then to have to come to work. and have to go through that, and then dread coming in there. And then you said something else very important. A lot of people are in these positions because we all have bills to pay. So
Yeah.
it's like, if I leave, will I be able to find another job? Or if I leave, will it be worse than where I am? So sometimes you get caught in that sort of, like, I like to call, like, a trap. It's like you're there
Yeah.
because, sometimes the money is not great, but it's good enough. And
Right.
then sometimes we trick ourselves into saying, well, at least I have a job. Some people don't have jobs. But I think it's worse going to a job that you don't like day in and day out than not having a job, you know?
Yeah. And it's amazing. So one of the things that you mentioned is that, if you're not, if you're not content where you are, you're not happy where you are, you're not being appreciated about, you can just leave. I knew that was my reality at that company I was working with, but I felt that no, I just need to stick it out. No, I need to prove something to someone, that, oh, no, I can handle it. I can do X, Y, and Z. And I will make moves based on other people. I wasn't in the
Mhm.
driver's seat. Other people were in the driver's seat of my life, and that was it's is I don't want to be dramatic and say depressing, but it can be depressing because you
Yeah,
feel
it
like you
can
have
be.
no
Yeah.
control. Yeah, you feel like you have no control over your own life. And I was sick of giving people the driver's being the driver's seat. I didn't want that anymore. And I've learned to build a habit of doing what's best, doing what's necessary. And even going back to what you said, some people having a hard issue or having a hard time because of the money. I'm a single woman, and so I don't have anything to fall back on. It's me. I got to do what I got to do.
Right.
It's not going to get paid because I didn't pay it. I can't depend on anyone else. But going back to the book, God is my source.
Amen. Yeah.
He's my source. And so when I realize that He is my source, I'm more confident to take more risks, to step out on faith, because the job that I have now is not because of man. God works through people.
Mhm.
But if He tells me to do something, I have to trust that He's going to have that plan already set in place for me to do. He's just waiting for me to make that step. He's waiting for me. And the thing about it is, a lot of people, they want to see like a happy ending. Well, what's going to happen? And I can say now that job was maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 4 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And now I'm working at a job where I'm making the money that I deserve. I'm
Mhm.
bonusing the way that I deserve. I'm working in a great company culture. I'm working doing the work that I want to do, having the opportunity to travel internationally, domestically as well. And so it can get better, but I wasn't worried about, I'm so concerned about my resume. It's only a short tenure. I wonder what hiring managers are going to say. Do what God tells you to do. Everything is going to work itself out. God moves based on our faith. And so I just have faith. Lord, I know this is not where you want me to be, but He's waiting for me to make that next step. He's waiting for me to make some moves, but so it can get better. And so I'll say that because I don't want people to think, you kind of go into one bad job to another. You can find a great opportunity. You can find a great job. I know the market is tough, but it's out there.
Yeah.
Those jobs are out there.
Yeah. And faith is very important. That's interesting because I was just talking to a friend yesterday, and you know, he was on my mind. I called him, and he was, because we worked at a company together some years ago. He's still there. And I was telling him about, remember when we first got there, how good things were and how there was a shift and all these different things that happened. And I was like, when that stuff started happening, I made it my point to try to find my way out, because like I referenced earlier, it felt like a trap. And he was agreeing with me and stuff, and he was like, man, I wish I had the faith that you had to do things. And I was like, it's there, you just have to go ahead and push it out and not being afraid. I mean, you're very talented, and he knows, he's in the tech, and he knows his information, he knows everything. And he said he doesn't even know what it is. And I was like, well, you have to find out what that is and push past that fear. I said, because what you're wanting
Yeah.
to happen in your life is on the other side of that fear. Like the things that you're praying for, you want to happen, is on the other side of your fear. It's like you have to do your part as well. And then he's like, I know. And I'm okay. So what you gonna do? And he was like, man, don't get on me. I was
Right.
like, hey, what you gonna do? I'm like, if anybody understands what it's like to work there, is me, because I was there. So, I'm not
Yep.
just somebody on the outside saying, oh, well, I'm like, I've been there and I know. And, and I reminded him of all the stuff that was good when we first got there. He was like, wow, yeah, you're right. He was like, you remember that? I was like, yeah, it's not like that anymore. And I know you have different things going on right now, but I was like, you need to find a priority to not be afraid and look outside. Cause he said that, his wife was telling him the same thing. And I was like, yeah, she's right. I was like, hey, I said, man, I said, it's in you, man. I said, I see it in you. You just have to push past that fear. And I think a lot of times people don't realize, and this is something else I told him. I was like, we
Mm-hmm.
all get nervous about things or fearful, whatever word you want to use. But it's like, soon as we start, we forget all about it. And it's so comfortable. And we're looking at ourselves like, is this what I was afraid of? Like, that wasn't anything. That
Right.
was easy.
Right.
And now you're looking for the next thing to do because he's like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
Give me something else to do.
Yeah.
I said, that's all you gotta
Yeah.
do is just push past that fear and watch everything else open up.
Fear is something else. Fear will literally cause you to stay in a spot that you don't want to be in. You know there's
Yeah.
better, but because of fear, you will stay right in the mud. You will stay right
Yeah.
in the mud because you don't know what's on the other side. And so, but it's great that you were able to speak to your friend about that. Someone who knows, someone who's been through things, and that's why it's so important. You're writing your book, doing the podcast. It's so important for us to have these what I'll call testimonies and so forth, just
Yeah.
stories and just motivating and encouraging people so people can see, no, I've been where you are. I know there's something on the other side, because we want to see it. We want to hear it. We don't want to just kind of think about it in theory. We want to know this can be our reality. But I've dealt with fear a lot, like a lot. I always think of worst case scenario,
Yeah. Yeah.
thinking and analyzing things that has gotten me very far, even professionally and making the right decisions in my life, but has also held me back because I'm always thinking about what if, and I won't move, and I'm thinking, man, I could have been so much further along had I just not even think about what could have happened in a negative way, but what could have happened in a positive way. What if this
Right.
happens? This could be better than what you ever thought of, and so but that's something that I've dealt with a lot. I always thought about, what if I lose my house? What if this job doesn't work out? They let me go. I lose my house. I lose my car. I can't pay my bills. I think about this. And then, but again, if God has ordered your steps or he's told you to do something and so forth, believe he's going to care for you. Believe that he's
Right.
going to provide. But also you just have to go for it. You just have to do it with fear. Do it afraid, And so I can't say that I've done something and it worked out well because I wasn't afraid. No, I was afraid while doing it, but in the process, I learned, okay, this is not as bad as I thought it was. Like you said, it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's not as difficult as I thought it was. And that's how you build yourself. You learn skills, you develop your skills. You got to actually go into new territories. You got to do things you've never done before if you want new results.
Yes.
And that's something that I had to learn. Fear has always been, especially then, was one of my, I would say, flaws. Something that has really held me back, and I haven't been able to take risks because I've been so afraid.
Yeah, and it's natural. I hate when people try to act like if you're fearful or cautious about something, then that's not showing that you have faith, or they try to demonize it like, well, you really don't believe in, but that's not true. Like, that's a natural
Right.
human instinct. I mean, it's not true. It's like we have those moments. We shouldn't stay there. That's the thing. We shouldn't
Right.
stay there. And
Right.
I think people like to twist up the two. It's like, if you have fear or if you're fearful of something, that means you don't believe. But that's that. I hate to hear that, because I'm like, you can't challenge somebody's faith because you're thinking a certain kind of way and you don't know what that person is going through, or what, because sometimes what we think
Right.
is fear is it can also sometimes be a little bit of excitement, but we don't recognize it as that. It's just
Yeah.
like a little bit of nervousness, and it's not really fear. So
Right.
I like when people admit that they're fearful, because I tell people all the time, it's like, I don't always feel like, yeah, I'm gonna do this and I'm also, like, excited about it, or not nervous. Like, that happens, and I'm like, okay, so it's here, what am I gonna do with that? Am I gonna sit there and
Right.
sit with it, or I'm gonna push past it and do what I need to do?
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, pushing past it. And like you, and some people, it's a term for everything nowadays. I guess people say it's like toxic positivity,
Yeah,
and so
you're
it's like,
right.
well, fear, yeah, like, well, fear exists, so let's not act like it doesn't exist, because then if we don't talk about it, we can't manage it. If we don't talk about it, we can't work through it. We got to call it what it is so we can work through it. Let's call a thing. And so, I definitely agree with you there. We really want to make sure we're being honest with people. Understand there is fear, acknowledge the fear, but like you said, push past it.
And you said something there I thought about the other day. It's like acknowledging something doesn't give it power over you. Ignoring it does. It's like you think if you just ignore something, it's going to go away, but you have to acknowledge it. And then when you acknowledge it, you find a way to address it. Like when people have
Right.
certain issues, they try to act like, well, if I say that I don't feel well, then I'm giving it power over my life. No, no, you're recognizing the problem and then you're doing what needs to be done to fix it. Now, if you're sitting there,
Absolutely.
yeah, if you're sitting there sulking and like you just every minute you're saying it, then yeah, but you have to acknowledge it first so you can find the proper treatment for it, or you can find the proper steps to get you on the other side.
Yeah, like if you have some sniffles and your throat's getting sore, you're not gonna do nothing. You're just gonna kind of let it get worse and
Exactly.
so forth. Like, no, I'm not even gonna acknowledge that. Like, no, go ahead and get some Theraflu, get some Robitussin, and I'm
Work
showing
it
my age
out.
now. Go some Robitussin, and yeah, absolutely. So, but no, I'm with you. It's important to acknowledge, and it's hard. It's
Oh
hard
yeah, yeah.
to acknowledge because now we're faced to deal with it. And a lot of times
Hmm.
we don't know what to do with it. We may not have the skills, but that's why it's important to stay in community with others, keep
Right.
motivating others, rather it's going to therapy, talk with mentors. Maybe you're reading or listening to podcasts such as yours and so forth. And so that's why these resources are out there, because you may not know what to do, but someone has been there before. There's nothing new under the sun. That's what it says, right? There's nothing new under the
Right,
sun.
right.
So there's someone who has been through those waters, and they could provide their advice. Granted, everyone's life is different, but we have to acknowledge that's step one, right?
Yeah, yeah, you have to. You won't
Yeah.
get anywhere if you don't. Yeah. And you said something
Yeah.
that made me think. You said something about mentorship. And that brings me to the next reason why I had you here. You have a nonprofit called Hands of Giving. How did that
Yeah.
start?
So, Hands of Giving was really birthed by my mother and myself,
Okay.
based on we want to help young girls who are going to college or to a university. And I remember when I was a senior in high school, on top of the world. I got a summer job, had all my graduation money, and then I went to school, had to pay for this, pay for that, textbooks, this
Yes.
and that. Yeah, and that money was gone. I went to school broke. you
Yeah.
know, After all that work, I went to school broke. And so I remember just, even going to Walmart. I said, I'm gonna buy some Roman noodles. I'm gonna get it for this is lunch, this is dinner. This is like I was broke.
Yeah.
I was a broke college student. And so,
Yes.
and the thing about it is you should be focused on your studies. You should be focused on learning. You should be focused on your experience. I'm not saying you're gonna be balling out and driving in the best cars and so forth, and some families and so forth, but you should be able to focus on your studies, not on
Right.
having hard times on money, especially being able to pay for classes. I remember just going online and trying to find all these scholarships, just the stress of it. So Hands of Giving is trying to eliminate some of that burden. So one of the first girls that we helped, we took care of everything for her dormitory. We took care of everything from comforters, toiletries, kitchen essentials, everything that she would need for on campus living. We took care of that. And again, the part of going to college is your individuality, you're expressing who
Yeah.
you are. So we still wanted her to pick out her own things, pick out your own comforter, pick out your own toiletries, what you need, and we'll take care of that. We didn't want to say just we're going to give it to you, you should be grateful. No, we still want you to have that experience and picking what you want, but And little did I know, when we were giving her and her mom the items, I learned that she had a twin brother, and her twin brother was going to Clemson and she was going to USC Upstate. And her mother was telling us, "You have no idea how much this has helped trying to put two
Yeah.
kids through college. And we don't have to worry about any of this." And so, and that's what it's about. We're trying to help girls who are going to a college or to a university, who want to pursue their education. We do have a scholarship fund as well, and it's called the J. Belser Scholarship Fund. It's named after my mother, her maiden name. She's very passionate about helping. I would say, with me giving back and working with nonprofits, it's really started from her.
Okay.
She has always helped people, regardless of what she had in her pocket. She always made a sacrifice for other people, and I really wanted to make sure that I took those traits and was able to give back as well. And so it really started from my college experience, but also from my mother as well. And so we're trying to continue to raise money, so we can give a very healthy scholarship fund to a or to a young lady this year. But that's why it was birthed. Again, my experience and being broke.
Yeah.
And also with my mother just always willing to give a hand to someone in need, and she's always been really passionate about helping other kids going to college because she knew what we went through.
I mean, you try to prepare yourself for college, and then when you get there, it's all these things that you still need that you didn't realize until you actually get there.
Yeah.
And then there's some things that you bought that you really didn't need. And so
Yes.
it's, it
And
was
you trying to go
truly,
back to Target trying to get that $2 back, like it's
yeah,
gonna do something.
it was really a learning experience. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, man, I appreciate my time at college, but it was a lot of things that I wish that were better. And having something like that would have definitely helped me. Um, it almost felt like you were being thrown to the wolves. It was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't want to call home and ask for anything. I want to be able to do this
Right.
on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about it is, and the thing about it is, I went to college and I was broke, but I had a helping hand. And that's why one of the things I named it Hands of Giving is so forth. For example, my brother, he's a few years older than I. He was in the military
Okay,
at that time. Yeah, and he would send me $60 a month. And so $60 back then in
was a
college,
lot.
that goes
Yes.
a long way. Yes.
Yes.
You said $60 now, they look at you like, what? Just $60. But back then,
Yeah.
we made it work. We made it work. And so I had help. Though there were times that we were struggling, if someone knew and they wanted to help, they were helping me, especially my brother. He sent me $60 every month. It was drafted from his account every month. And I want to make sure I'm giving back to others. I just don't want people to help me regardless of what it is, and I don't even pay that forward in any way, and so forth. And my brother, he's not looking anything back for me, and so forth. But my niece, my nephew, I could pay it forward to them
Yeah.
in that way, and so to children in our communities and so forth. So we named it Hands of Giving because it takes a hand. It really does take a hand. My brother helped me, of course. My parents had other family members that helped as well. But it does take a village. It really does. And some people, they don't have that village. That's the reality.
Yeah.
Some people don't. And we want to step in and be able to help. Everyone doesn't have a large family. And if you do, it doesn't mean that some people are able to even give,
Yeah.
so we can't do everything, but we can do something. And that's my thing. If you can do something, do that thing that you can do. Rather is, I'm gonna give you a gift card. You're going to lunch, I'll pay for your lunch. Or you having a car at college, I'll give you a gas gift card. Something of that nature. Something so simple will go a long way, especially to a young person who needs that help.
Yeah, because you had me thinking about when I was in college. Of course, my parents would help if need be, and then I had family members. But there were those students who were from out of state, and they didn't have anybody. Some of them, I just recently found out that a young lady I went to college with, that she was an orphan before she came to college, and she didn't have anything. And
Oh
now
wow.
she's the coroner. She's the coroner in Richland County, And to hear her story is, I had no idea when we were in
Yeah.
college. You couldn't tell. But
Yeah.
she had people there, something like your organization out there giving her a helping hand and helped her with the things that she needed. And then that makes a difference because look at her now. She's the coroner. First black female
Yeah.
coroner in that area, and that's major. And just imagine if there wasn't
Absolutely.
anybody to help her along, or, when she got to college, if she didn't have that there. So those things are very important to me, especially when it's dealing with young people. It doesn't matter the age. I think that if we can help somebody, we really should help them, especially when they're young, so we can show them that somebody cares, because we take for granted, because we have
Mhm.
people in our lives that care about us, that everybody has that, but everybody does it. Because when I was a freshman,
Nope.
like I said, I learned during some of the breaks, there were some people that were still there because they didn't have a family to go to, or they didn't like what their family structure looked like, so they rather stay on campus and just be there by themselves.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really that took note of what you said is like no one knew, you didn't know, and so forth. And
Yeah,
so you don't know what someone needs simply by looking at them.
right.
You can't try to measure what's is someone's pocket simply by looking at them. You can't do that. And so even with hands of giving, we don't have like an income base. We kind of use like an honor system. We're kind of at a point where we could manage it. We don't want people to feel as if, I got to have nothing to get a little bit of something and so forth. We don't want that to be the case in that aspect, because you can have a two income household, but even still paying the bills sometimes just doesn't seem to be enough, and you need help and you need assistance. And so I don't want people to feel as if, I have to, do we want to tell them about this money and that money and so forth? Because I understand, I get it. I've been in a household, two income, with children in the house, but sometimes you just need more. You need more of a helping hand. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. You can't look at someone and say what they need, what they don't need. If you have something in your heart to give, to support, then do so.
Yeah, that's a very good point, especially nowadays, depending on where you live and how the price of living has gone up. Sometimes two
Oh yeah.
incomes is not enough. And then you think about having a child go to college and making sure they have everything they need. And it does. What trips me out sometimes when people see people driving certain cars and they just assume they have it all, but it's like you don't know if that person's behind on payments. You don't know their backstory, what's going on. And I like how you use the honor system,
Nope.
because I truly believe that something like this, people shouldn't and aren't going to take advantage of. If it's
Right.
needed, it's needed. And I would hope that nobody takes from a child that actually needed just to be selfish and looking for some extra money, because people out there really need help. And college should be, like you said, should be an exciting time. You shouldn't have to worry about these
Yep.
things. You should be getting in, settling in, and getting ready to learn, because college is expensive.
It's very expensive. I'm still paying now, so it's very
Yeah.
expensive. And one of the things, even with this, with the organization, we are still trying to bridge that community with the teen girls and what we do. So last year, we had a teen paint party. And so this
Okay.
wasn't a way to raise money. We just wanted to, one, let people know we're here in the community, get to know these girls. And so we went to Painting with a Twist in Somerville, and we invited whoever wanted to come and sign up for $10 for like a painting class. And those things, they like a sip and paint, but for teen girls. Those things usually
Right.
cost maybe $30, $40, but we only charge $10. Just $10. And come, and they were waiting for the next one. Like, okay, when are you going to have your next event and so forth? So we're working on that now. But we really want the girls to have a community, a village with one another, with other women in the community as well. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Of course, we want to make sure we're able to give a scholarship, be able to help anyone who's going to college or university. But a lot of those connections, they start before they go to college. They start before their senior
Right.
year. We want to make sure that they're aware. And there are some parents who said, next time you have a fundraising or anytime you have a fundraising event, let me know. I want to participate. So it's great to be able to have those type of supporters around as well.
And how can somebody contact you if they want to donate or anything? What's your information on that?
Absolutely. Thank you. So there is an email address. You can send me an email at handsofgivingsc@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, which is www.handsofgivingsc.org. So again, handsofgivingsc@gmail.com, or you can go to handsofgivingsc.org and you're able to donate there. You can also see anything that we have coming up, some of our pictures from our pink party as well. But if you're looking just to even get on a mailing list, like, hey, next time you're having an event, I want to have an email notification, that's fine as well. We'll make sure we keep you updated. If you're looking to maybe be a volunteer or whatever the case may be, or even sponsor an event, or even some of our scholarship, feel free to email me. We can talk through it. So absolutely, we're always looking for individuals who are willing to volunteer or be a supporter.
Okay, great. And I'll have the information in the show description as well. Before I let you get out of here, how can
Yeah.
my listeners purchase your book?
It is on Amazon.com. And so it is under my full name, Brittany Jones. So I encourage you today. It is a women's devotional. So you can find the book on Amazon.
Okay, and are there any social media links or anything you want to share with my listeners so they can connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. So we do have a Facebook page for Hands of Giving. We do have that. So you can search me there, or you can search me on Facebook, Brittany Jones, or you can search me on Instagram, which is at Valiance_B. So Valiance, and so it's interesting. So I told you I've been dealing with this fear a lot. So Valiance means to be bold, to be courageous. And so
Yeah.
that's just another word for being bold and courageous. So Valiance. So on Instagram, Valiance_B. But I do have my own personal page, Brittany Jones, on Facebook, and also Hands of Giving has a Facebook page as well.
Okay, okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your information and knowledge with me. I appreciate you coming by. Sorry it took so
I definitely
long.
appreciate you inviting me.
No problem. I really felt like this is something that my listeners need to hear about and also get exposed to. So I really, really appreciate your time. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get out of here?
The one thing I probably would say is in regards to just going back to what we talked about in regards to fear and being courageous and being bold and so forth. You know, I really would say that my life has looked up when I pushed past that fear, you know, and so I really, if I could encourage anyone to take a lesson from me, you're not going to start living till you push past that fear. You know, it's there, I understand, but life has so much more to offer. You know, we want to see new things, but that requires us to do different things as well. And so for me, it was pushing past the
Right.
fear. For you, it may be something else. It may not be the fear, but for me, that's definitely what it was. So if anyone else is going through the same thing, I would say that. So I encourage you today, maybe one of your resources to help you kind of push past that. And so some things, I do have stories. So I know some people like storytelling and so forth, but again, I would say that the book has really helped me, things that God has spoke to me about. But I think this could be a great resource for you if you're dealing with any of the things that I mentioned before or other things. There's a lot of great material in the book. So,
Okay, you heard it. You heard it, guys. Purchase that book. Thank you again for coming and joining me. And to my listeners, I want you to remember, as always, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.